Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Make a Scene with Video, the video podcast, where we discuss everything and anything in the intersection of video and mission-driven organizations. And super excited today, we have two special guests, and I want to introduce the first one. This is Lily. Lily the Wonder Dog. She's our mascot.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with Make a Scene Media, we are a full-service production company that helps nonprofits and mission-driven organizations make an impact through video storytelling. And we specialize in trauma-informed and ethical production practices because we believe that video can not only educate, engage, and inspire, but it can be a positive and healing experience for all involved. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm super excited today because we actually have a new friend on this week. Heather and I in our business, we get to work with some really amazing people across the board, from communications to fundraising to mental health specialists to social workers, and some really fascinating people. And I'm actually very excited about today's topic because it's something that we have not talked a lot about.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get started. We want to welcome Wendy Moore, the incredible founder of Eleve Talent. Welcome, Wendy.
I am so happy to be here. I love all that you put out in the world, so all of the good.
Well, Wendy, I'm really excited today because, you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll talk a little bit about why I'm super excited about having you on today.
Yeah, so I founded Eleve Talent because really I'm all about the people side of the organization and teams that I work with. So I came into this because I've built in a under-resourced environment before, both in the startup world, also serving nonprofits. And so I just know how hard that environment can be to attract amazing people, keep them on your team. And so that's what I'm really passionate about. So yeah, that's what we do at Eleve Talent, is building teams.
I love that. And so what's really cool about today is that we often talk about how to use video for external communications, right? To raise money, raise awareness, to connect people to your cause. But something that's really cool that Wendy's going to talk about today is how to use video for your internal communications to make sure that not only are your current employees sort of feeling connected, especially in this remote work environment, but also like how are you connecting with potential new hires, with those other really passionate, motivated individuals out there who are just waiting to join your cause. So super excited.
Yeah, definitely. And then, Wendy, already you brought up the idea of under-resourced, and that's something we talk about a lot. So I think we should wrap up and talk about how we can help people with few resources do video, if that makes sense. All right. So can you let us know how do you use video in your field?
Yeah, I think that it's so effective at every step of the process because it's the way that you connect before they ever get in the door, before you ever get into an interview. And so every step of the recruitment phase video can be effective because essentially I love it when teams get to share that really creative approach, show their unique team culture, their actual internal communication style, so they can get a little fun, they can get a little funky, they can be very serious if the topics and work that they do is very serious, but whatever that is that's true for them, they're conveying that because that comes across so much more in video and this kind of face-to-face interaction than it does in written text. And so if I'm an employee looking for the next amazing thing to join, I'm going to be digging into an organization's website. I'm going to be looking at their employees, and I want to see myself there. And so if you're sharing all of your existing employees, their stories, why did they join your team? What is a day in the life look like for them? Those are great recruitment pieces because if I'm a really passionate, motivated, mission-driven individual drawn to your organization, I can see myself in that seat. I can see myself in that person's story. And so just communicating that. So I see this done really well on career pages, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be overly robust. If you have a website and you have a page that you could dedicate to a career site, tell some stories, embed some videos, some employee testimonials. Why did they join the team? And those kind of items go so far when somebody is preparing for an interview, they're looking at your organization and choosing between you and someone else, and or choosing to go from for-profit into the nonprofit space. So that's one of the best ways I see it done in recruitment is on that careers page, just some really authentic storytelling where you see someone's face, you see them light up when they talk about the work that they do, and you're going to attract really good people that way. And then the other way I see that done is kind of on a leadership level. How does the leadership communicate? And they can share their stories as well.
I love that. Thank you. And I love that you said it's sort of the key word. Like, it doesn't have to be fancy, right? I mean, these are internal communications. This is sort of, a low tech way to just sort of get yourself out there and get that story out there. But I kind of want to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the unique challenges that nonprofits might be facing in today's world with staffing, with recruitment, with retention, with work from home, and then let's get a little more into some of the ways that video is helping with those specific issues that are happening right now.
Yeah, we're seeing a really hard shift in the talent space. So there was a long time, and I think we're still seeing this, where there's not enough people for the jobs that are open. There's a huge gap in the talent market. But we're also seeing a lot of layoffs. So we're in this really tricky world right now where it seems like there should be more people applying for our jobs that are really qualified and great. But ultimately, we're still seeing some gaps. And so the recruitment side of things is mostly time. So it's sorting through, if I post a job out there and I get 200 applications, but only 10 of them are actually qualified for the role, how am I as a hiring team, an already understaffed nonprofit, getting through that? And so again, where if you use some smart techniques on promoting your mission, promoting your work, and maybe call that out in the application process. So ask them to talk a little bit about why they connected with that. That could be a really good way to see the ones rise above the noise quickly and more effectively. Or again, sometimes it does help to bring in some external help as well, just to help you do that process well, so you can focus on the work you do.
I'll throw out that an added benefit of having this video on your careers page is that that's public, right? And so I think nowadays, people are looking for in brands, and I think just like in nonprofits, it's like, are your values really where they say they are? So it's like, oh, you talk about being inclusive with your client base, but it's like, well, are you being inclusive behind the scenes as well? Are you making people feel welcome? Are you, being kind to your own staff when you're preaching being kind to the world, right? So there's like it's not the direct purpose of that video, but there's some added benefits to showing that like you care for the people on your team. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk all the time about belonging and inclusion, and that's exactly the kind of message you can push out is your people say that for you first.
Nice.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. I mean, and so I want to actually ask you a little bit about some more about the internal communications too, because now, obviously we can use this for recruitment. We can sort of set this story, this brand story of who we are as a nonprofit and what we're looking for and what we stand for, which could also double as, like you said, it's out there in the public. Everyone can see that, not just for potential new hires. But what about for internal, right? So one of the things that we live in a remote work environment now. People are spread out all over the world. And so how are we using video to keep people together?
Yeah,
Beyond Zoom.
Yeah, and I'm still the person who pushes to turn that video on in Zoom, because we all know that this connection piece just goes so much farther when you get a chance to see someone's face, see their reactions. Even if I'm not sitting in the same room as you, I feel more connected to you because I can see your face. And so where I see the best internal communications as far as mission driven and sharing those stories and sharing the work is, I worked with a company that every time they did an all hands meeting, they shared a customer testimonial or client testimonial. They served other nonprofits. So their clients were nonprofits saving the world in different ways, serving very specific areas. And so when you sit in an all hands meeting, and typically it's pretty dry, it's very much like a company update, it's, more business oriented. If you can hear this really impactful 3 to 5 minute story, whether that's video, or the client comes in person if you're able to do that, but especially even through video so you can repurpose and reuse that, you're more connected to the work that you're doing. And I think about how effective this is to keep your people there. So we talk about recruitment a lot, but retention is the hardest thing that we're seeing right now for companies that are under-resourced, where everybody is wearing a lot of hats, everyone is stretched a little thin, and you need to continually remind them that the work you do is very impactful and it's important. And so all hands meetings, that's a great way. It's typically a consistent cadence for companies. They can share this great client testimonial and then also repurpose that video. I also think it's a fun way to share. Again, I talked a little bit about leadership culture, but if you work for a fun leadership team, but I'm 100 employees removed from my C-suite, how can I feel more connected to my executive director who formed the company, who had the mission, the vision to do this? So if they make a quirky, fun video to share with their team, communicating something important, something a little bit more lighthearted that feels like more of a connection. So even if I can't meet with all of those people one-on-one individually, I still now feel more connected to my leadership. So those are 2 ways I see it work really effectively.
I love that. And I want to come back to that story that you told me earlier about like the really bad way that people have used video before and like what not to do, because that was a great story. But I want to, what you said is so important because the personality type, the people that work at nonprofits, right, they do this for a reason. They're not in it for the money. They're in it for the mission, and they're in it because they really believe in the cause. So I love that idea of sharing success stories with those people because that is their currency. That's the thing that keeps them motivated. They want to know that their job is working, that their effort is going towards something. And, we talk about this all the time. People want to join a movement that's already in motion. They want to be a part of something that's working. And so if you can show them that every week, every time you come on, like, you guys are doing so good, here it is straight from the customer, like that would feel so good.
Oh yeah, especially because so we work with a affordable housing nonprofit, and you have resident services coordinators who are in the buildings meeting the residents every single day. They have these great relationships with them. I'm sure they get that feedback all the time. But what if you're the accountant at the nonprofit? What if you're doing like all the documents and headquarters and you're there all late and maybe you're not getting that that feedback from the residents themselves? Like if I had a video telling me about how the nonprofit that I'm supporting changed their life, I mean, it feels good. It feels really good. I mean, that's what keeps you going. Definitely. And I'll tell the story of, so speaking of the C-suite, like communications, internal stuff. So it just came out, this CEO, he wanted to do a video, but not just suggesting people come back to the office, but like was telling them it's not a suggestion anymore, you need to come back to the office. Okay, fine. But he did it on a green screen. It was a green screen of the office behind him. He wasn't in the office. And then he had all of his VPs saying, oh, you should come to the office. It's a great culture. We really worked better together. They were all green screen. None of them were in the office. And then the people who were in the office, they're poor people who don't even see those CEOs. They had them dancing. Like they're in like the little kitchenette at the office being like, it's really fun here. It's like so bad, so awkward. The video leaked to the public and everyone was mocking it. It's hard to find it now because it had been leaked, but you can find YouTube videos talking about that video. And what a PR nightmare.
Well, it's authenticity. So, like, Wendy, why is authenticity so important, right?
I mean, your people are smart. They understand that the difference between authenticity and an authentic leader who is in the office, is in the trenches with their team, who understands and is setting that tone, and the one who is somewhere luxurious and comfortable or at home and pushing everyone else to go into a really dry, boring office. So yeah, your team is too smart to be fooled by green screens, to miss out on that jump between what I'm saying with my mouth and what you're seeing behind me or what the reality is in the office. So, yeah, I think it has to be real. It has to be what you're truly doing. If you don't have a big modern office, that's okay. You could have a warm, friendly office. So it doesn't have to be somebody that's not you that you're portraying, and it's not your team that you're portraying. It just needs to be true to why those people joined your team in the first place. So, and again, your people know video. They know how it's made. They know when it looks fake, and they're probably using it more than you are as a leader in your organization.
Yeah,
That's such a
exactly.
good point. That's such a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah. Well, I want to actually switch gears a little bit too now. Still kind of stay in the internal communications realm, because I think we talk a lot about how nonprofits are super stretched thin. Time is money, resources are tight, and people are wearing a lot of hats. So where can you use video within your internal processes to save time, to build a library of assets, right? And number one is training, right? Like if you're training somebody, record it. Now you don't have to train that anybody again. You can use the video. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So that you don't have to repeat yourself if possible. It is such a great way in the training process and onboarding. So, one, you can repurpose the types of things we've been talking about into this. So, if you're welcoming an employee on day one, which is so important to do well, again, those mission driven client testimonials, employee testimonials are a great thing to repurpose in that. It also helps break up the day in training. But if you're talking about, I need to train somebody on this tool, this software, again, record it. So you do it one time, you can repurpose that, because if I'm a busy nonprofit leader trying to train a team of 7 and I every once in a while have turnover, so I'm retraining people again, I don't want to have to run that training all day, every day. And it also gives your employees a great resource to look back at. So they're not coming and knocking on your door every time there's a question. They can go back to this resource, this knowledge base. And so continuing to build that up and get those assets, absolutely. Such a great way to leverage a impactful tool. It helps with memory. Research has shown us how impactful video is over flat text. And what we know about people and attention spans now is they have to hear the same thing multiple times in different mediums. And so if you are conveying something important to your team in flat text 7 times, that's not going to resonate the same as if you maybe send an email, maybe also send an embedded video, maybe also share it in an all hands, and they also get it from their manager one-on-one. So now they're actually going to remember that information. So it's a tool in your toolkit to help diversify the messaging, change it up a little bit, make it more memorable. And research backs us up on that, on how much more memorable it is to get information visually.
I'm going to rewind us back a little bit to those impact videos with the clients or participants, because you had found research. You said research and made me think of it. Not just to motivate the general nonprofit worker, but very specifically fundraisers, people going out there trying to get donations. That tell us about that study you found about motivation.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. I love following Adam Grant, the organizational psychologist, because he really gets to the root of motivation and why and what keeps people at teams. And this study that they did was on fundraisers, and this was in a university advancement office, particularly, which is a really high turnover position and tends to have a relatively low fundraising rate. I mean, just the calls that they make aren't overly productive in getting those donor money in. So it's a very discouraging job by nature. And so hence the high turnover rate. And so the study that they did on that was, if I could have a 5-minute impact story shared by someone who got that scholarship, what is going to be the impact on those fundraisers? And the numbers are absolutely astounding. It didn't go up by 20%. I think it went up by 400%. And the retention rate went up by a similar amount as well, with the people staying in those seats. And so it just goes to show how that feedback loop to the person who's maybe a little removed from the direct hands-on client work, how impactful that is, how much of a difference that can make in their enthusiasm for sharing the story of the organization to bring in more donor dollars, and how much I want to stay in that seat as an employee. Even after I get 20, 30 no's, I'm going to remember that story of that scholarship student who couldn't have gone to college without receiving this. And I'm going to be motivated by that person. So I'm not quite as far removed from the work I'm doing, sitting there dialing the phone or doing that repetitive donor call out. So it's just a really impactful study, and I think just really speaks to how important this storytelling is. And you see it in the numbers, you see it directly.
Oh yeah, and then you're using it with your fundraisers, but you're sending it to your donors, you're putting it on your social media, it might live on your website, it might don't worry, we'll make sure that it's out there and reused as often as humanly possible. We're talking a lot about
there was one thing on the last thing we were talking about training. I just want to talk about tool.
Yeah.
So I, recording those trainings, recording anytime that you're sort of sharing subject matter, expert knowledge, that kind of thing. And there's so many great tools now for recording and presenting at the same time. Obviously, there's Loom is a great one where you can record yourself actually on your computer, showing people how to do what they're doing. What are some other ones, or what are some other ways that people are using that?
Loom is my favorite. That's one I refer people to a lot. To be honest, I see people kind of DIY some of these things, but there are such good tools now that you almost don't have to. You can leverage what's already built for that. So if you could record your screen, record your face, also talking through it at the same time, so much more personable than just a screen record or just an audio. And so that's my favorite go-to. I don't know that I have others to necessarily add, other than, again, just jumping on, if you don't have a fancy video editing, jump on a Zoom, record yourself, and save that video as well. So it doesn't have to be overly polished to get it out, especially when you're talking internally.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes right into the next thing of we're really big fans of supporting, any budget size to help people come up with the right video for their needs. And so, I want to think, where do you think that people should invest in the video? Obviously, you can turn on a Loom, you can turn on a Zoom, you can do Riverside, and it's fairly low cost. But where do you feel like there's value in investing in a professional video team versus kind of just DIYing it?
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about external communication versus internal communication and repurposing. So I would say if you have that great client testimonial, we've talked a lot about that today, that would be a great time to invest. Not only is your client who's being served by the work that you're doing maybe feel a little bit more taken care of in the process, if you're doing that in a more professional shoot manner with a great team, they're going to get that great VIP experience. But then you're also getting that high quality video that allows you to repurpose that across all of these various channels that we've talked about. So I would say anytime that you can really leverage a piece of content, that would be a good time to upgrade what you're using. If it's a one-time, one-hit, doesn't matter quite as much, or is strictly internal, that's when you can go a little bit less polished and use some of these other tools that exist out in the world. But investing in a great professional videographer team, when it's going to be used for years, you're going to see that return on that investment, because that quality is going to be higher. It's just going to feel, again, get that authentic feel, but also feel more polished.
Yeah, the evergreen value of professional material, whereas cell phone quality changes all the time. The video quality is going to change a lot. But I love that you mentioned that the video production it's an experience. Mm-hmm. That's a whole experience, which if you're working with a great team is super fun. I mean, my favorite place to be is on set. And you can really add a value to the experience of your donors, of your end user, by getting hair and makeup coming in, providing lunch for that day, like making it a whole day and experience. I mean, how many people get the opportunity to sit down in front of a professional film crew? For some people, it scares the crap out of them. And like, maybe those aren't your people, right? But there are people out there that would love the experience of being able to be filmed and have it be on a real career, set. So I love that you threw that out there as an added bonus. It's not just the video, but it's the whole experience.
Well, and I would add, for those of us like myself who don't love being on video, being coached through that by a professional can help with that. Because if you have, a lot of amateur videographers running around with cell phones, it may not be quite as comforting on how is this going to come out? Am I going to look okay? So if I'm a nervous, person on video, the professionalism helps as well, in my opinion, because you feel polished, you feel presented, you feel ready, so I can show up and actually share my story. So just adding to that layer of helping soothe whoever you're actually filming.
Yeah. I've been there, done that. And also, that's why, like when we record ourselves, sometimes we're like, why aren't we there? I would appreciate it if we were standing there coaching us instead of just coaching. It's a strange situation. Yeah. But it's also why trauma informed and practices are so important, because obviously you want to give a VIP experience to a CEO. Not only do you want to give a VIP experience to the population that you're serving, but you also have to be really sensitive about their background and just be open to the fact that they're sharing probably something personal, and not letting it just be a very technical process, but having it be a personal process. I think is super important. But we've talked a lot about us. I want to talk. Do you have any questions for us that might help your followers or people in your realm that we can help them out with?
Yeah, so many of the tips you've already shared today, I think will be really helpful. And I work with a lot of very busy teams, and I think we all do. These teams are under-resourced. Everyone wears a lot of hats. Everyone is doing a lot of different jobs. And so often, again, things like video, like getting our voice out there, feels like a nice to have, not a need to have. And just flipping the script on that. So I would ask you, if I haven't done much in that realm, if I'm an organization that's relatively small, hasn't shared my story, like, what's the first place to start? Like, where's the best first step?
I think that's a great idea. And I think it really depends on where you're at as an organization, right? Like, what are your big strategic goals? I think people sometimes come to us with like, we want a video for this purpose. And we really try to dial back. Okay, well, what are actually your strategic objectives for the whole year? What are your goals and missions? Because yes, we can come out and video that event, and we can give you a great video for that event. But how does that event play into your larger goals and objectives? Now we can craft a video that not only serves that event, but feeds into those bigger objectives. Or maybe we can take that one event video and we can cut it down into multiple other assets to help serve these other needs as well. So I think it's really it's a question of, what do you need to do? Do you need to raise money? Do you need to raise awareness? Do you have a process that's overly complicated that your fundraisers are spending a really long time on the phone trying to explain how it works, right? We worked with one organization where they have this very complicated sort of youth peer court system, and there's a lot of steps and moving parts. So we did a video to really make that process easy and simple for people to understand. So it's the first question is, what do you need to do? And then you sort of decide from there, okay, what's the best video to kind of reach that goal? But I would say just, number one, if you're an executive director with a lot of passion, or maybe you have someone on the team, your communications person has a lot of passion, they really understand the mission, just go live on Instagram and just hey, wanted to introduce you to us, who we are, what we're doing. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be great, but people are then going to hear your passion, and that's going to do a lot for you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that if you want to start right away and you want to start for $0 or the cost of a cell phone, I guess, which nobody can live without these days, it seems, start with where that live raw video feels natural. So that could be Instagram stories, that could be TikTok, that could be, the things where people are expected to be live, it's expected to be raw, and people are very forgiving if you mess up and say the wrong thing. And in YouTube, if it kind of, there's this rule that we had in television actually when we were doing pitches to networks, which is you either go all the way or you make it really raw. You don't want to stick in between where it's half really nice and half really raw, because then it looked like you tried to be nice and failed. So I would say just you go raw, you go live, you go TikTok, you mess up, captions aren't perfect, it's okay, and there's that version. You start there because that's live. And then you talk, if you want something that lives forever, that sits on your website, that's supposed to look formal, that you want slow-mo kids blowing bubbles in a field, then do that. But then just find a professional who works with people who have never done video before, and they can help you through that process.
I would say another way too is also utilizing more tools like Canva. So Canva, you can create video in 30 seconds using templates. So I think especially if you have maybe like a yearly report, what are your strategic report from the year, where you've got a lot of numbers and data and things like that. Like you said earlier, people retain information a lot better when it's paired with video. I think it's something like 70% better when paired with video. So if you can go on Canva and you can, put all those numbers in, but make it move and put some colors in and maybe throw a couple pictures in from your last event or whatever, all of a sudden you've got an asset that, looks good and makes people like, oh, okay, this is great. And it helps people understand a little bit better. So there's lots of ways to kind of get up and rolling right away. Obviously, we're going to suggest at least booking a call with us to do strategy so we can walk you through some of those ideas and options. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just get started. Just hit record.
Yeah. We've kept you long enough from your busy day. Let's wrap up. Let's tell our audience where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm at Eleve Talent everywhere you'd expect. So on Facebook, Instagram, mostly on LinkedIn, because that's where we have the most amount of content, elevetalent.com. And we also have a free strategic scaling guide out there in the world for those busy teams that are DIYing this process themselves as well.
I love that. I want you to actually add one more thing. Why do people come to you? Why do nonprofits come to you? I know you said it, but I want to have you say it one more time, just like a wrap up. So people come to me for this. I'd love to hear from you, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So they typically come to me because they think that they want to hire a specific role. So often, like you, it starts with one thing, but then we dig a little deeper and try to get to the root of that. So what makes us different is we dig into the full team strategy. So who to hire when, and then how to do it well. And so it starts a little bit before just filling one seat. It's who else is on your team, what are they excelling at, are they in the right seats, doing that kind of team strategy, and then let's make the most strategic hire for you. And so we love mission-driven organizations because it attracts passionate, amazing, talented people. And so that's what we excel at with our team, and just working and helping support really busy teams that just need a little bit of help with the time commitment that it takes to do these hires well.
Awesome. Thank
Very
you so
cool.
much, Wendy. I really appreciate your time, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks. What was this? Bye.